My name is Allie Futty. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired, a certified orientation and mobility specialist, and a certified assistive technology instructional specialist for people with visual impairments. I am currently the program manager for the Northeast Resource Center for Vision Education at UMass Boston. And today I want to talk a little bit about assistive technology and CVI and what I think you might need to know about that topic.
Part 5, Technology specifically for individuals with blindness and low vision.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call BVI technology or visual impairment specific technology, right? So we're leaving mainstream technology, which a lot of that were what we would call accessible technologies. There's things you go to the store and buy, and they have accessibility built into them. But now we're going to talk about really specialized devices that are just designed for kids with visual impairments. You can't buy them at your local store, and sort of talk about where does the child with CVI fit into those technologies. So first, let's talk a little bit about electronic magnification. We have desktop CCTV and a handheld CCTV presented on this slide. Special considerations for students with CVI when you're considering these devices is the size, position, and presentation of the controls of the device. Does it do just near viewing or distance viewing, or does it do both? And what does the student need? Does it have an XY table? So the XY table is present on some CCTVs, and it is a tray that has some rollers and gears on it that makes the material be able to move very slowly versus if you've ever tried to move material under a camera, it can be a little bit jumpy. Consider the child's hand-eye coordination under the camera. So a child with CVI might need some really significant instruction about how to look at a screen and use their hands under a camera. What kind of specific color options does the CCTV have built into it? Are there any masking options? So that means that you can reduce the amount of the images presented on the screen at any given time. Are there line reader options? So that's like you can present let's say a long red line across, so you can kind of use it as a line reading guide as you're reading. And what about optical character recognition? So that would be the ability to take a photo of whatever's under the camera and have it read back to you while also providing a visual presentation. I've used CCTVs with kids with CVI on many occasions. And again, it goes back to that question of the device might be the same, but the purpose might be different between ocular visual impairment and CVI. So maybe you don't need the CCTV because this child really doesn't need large print, but maybe the fact that the CCTV, like let's say you're doing distance viewing with it, is going to immediately reduce the amount of visual complexity and allow the student just to focus on just the whiteboard. That's a way that I've used it before with students. Or same thing with a map. Maybe it's not that the font is small, but the map is so visually complex that if the student can really focus in on just a small portion of the map, then they can participate in the particular activity. Optical character recognition is also a great feature of many CCTVs now. Screen reading software. So these are programs, some are built in, some can be purchased. So like Microsoft Narrator or VoiceOver for Mac OS or iOS. For Apple, you've got JAWS, which can be purchased, MVDA, which is a free third-party screen reader. So for when you're talking about a screen reader, does the student really need text-to-speech only, or do they need more robust screen reading functions? And what I'm talking about when I say text-to-speech only versus more robust screen reading functions is text-to-speech would be just the option to have the text read aloud versus screen reader programs provide more robust control of the computer so that somebody who has no visual access to the computer at all can use their keyboard to navigate the computer in its entirety. What platform are they going to be on? Because then that's going to determine what screen reader you're going to be use. Do you need speech only or magnification with speech? So there's, for example, a program that Freedom Scientific makes called Fusion. That's essentially Zoom text and JAWS together in one program. So that's the JAWS is the screen reading. Zoom text, that program we talked about earlier, does magnification and visual modification of the screen. You can have both together at the same time. Do you want a gesture-based screen reader or a keyboard-based screen reader? So for example, if you use VoiceOver on an iPad, you're going to do things like a one-finger flick to move to the next item, versus if you're on a keyboard, you might have to hit the right arrow to move to the next item. Does the student need to be able to use the mouse too, for some reason? And that's going to, maybe make some determination about what screen reader you're going to go with. Some screen readers don't love when you use the mouse. They want you to be using keyboard control, or otherwise you'll start getting a little slowing down and glitching. Does it need to work with switch access? So is the student going to be accessing whatever the device is through switch access? And do they need screen reading? And how can the verbosity and speech be adjusted for the student's needs? So you want to make sure you've got the ability to really have a lot of granular control over the speed, the pitch, the actual voice the student is listening to. Braille technology. So some students with CVI are Braille readers. And so these are two examples of Braille displays / Braille tablets. One on the left is called the Mantis Q40, which is made by APH. On the right, we have the Braille Note Touch Plus, which is made by Humanware, but there's many, many, many different kinds of Braille displays available. So some special considerations for students with CVI and Braille is, does the student need a visual representation of what's on the Braille display? So there are some Braille displays, like, I'll just go back a slide, like the Braille Note Touch Plus that actually has a screen. There's also other options that would allow you to plug an external screen and get a visual representation of what is happening on the Braille display. Or does an adult need a visual representation that child's going to be working with? Do you want just a display, a smart display, or a Braille tablet is kind of what I break them into. A display doesn't have kind of any internal intelligence. It just has to be, it's like a keyboard. It's got to be connected to another device. Smart displays are kind of in between. They're used with other devices most frequently, but they might have some basic built-in stuff like a little notepad, and maybe you can download a book and stuff when it's not connected, and maybe a calculator, or what we call a full Braille tablet, which is something like the Braille Note Touch Plus, which I've shown you twice now. That is a full mobile operating system. It's an Android operating system. You can attach it to other operating systems, but you don't need to. You can do anything on that you could do on an Android device. Does it need to have speech? Some Braille displays do have speech, some don't. What about a one-handed mode? Does the student only have access to maybe one of their hands? Do you want to have a QWERTY keyboard versus 6-key entry, which is the Braille style entry, on like a Perkins keyboard? So the QWERTY keyboard, the Mantis Q40 has that. The Braille Note Touch Plus doesn't show its Perkins style keyboard right now, but there's actually a keyboard that flips down over that screen that has the 6 Braille keys on it. So what's the best entry method for that particular student? And you need to have the ability to connect an external QWERTY keyboard for some reason to the device. So sometimes you'll see that for students who are deafblind, let's say, for example, who, somebody with a QWERTY keyboard could communicate back and forth with the person using the Braille display by typing onto it. So for screen magnification software, again, we want to consider some things like, do we need magnification from gesture, from touchpad, from mouse, from keyboard command? These are all ways, different magnification devices have different ways that you can actually make the screen look bigger. What color options does the student need as a part of the screen magnification software? What highlighting options does the student need? What masking options the student needs? We talked about masking before, which is being able to reduce the amount of information on the screen at one time. Some screen magnification softwares allow you to do that. What size monitor does the student need? And how should the monitor be positioned? Those are really important ones to think about for kids with CVI. Sometimes the thought is like, oh, let's get the biggest monitor we can find for a kid who needs screen magnification. But the reality is that's not going to be the best for every student. If somebody's got a really limited visual field, giving them a huge screen is actually going to create a lot more challenges for them and a lot less efficiency. And where's that going to be positioned? We want to make sure we're hitting people in their best visual fields. So just a couple of quick notes on tablet and phone accessibility options to consider. Artificial intelligence is coming a very long way on these devices. Magnifier app cameras can describe scenes, read text, describe people, identify currency, help find objects, etc. I mean, we are like, they can do a lot. In 10 years, we're not even going to recognize what AI can do on our devices. So just keeping abreast of all the ways that artificial intelligence is going to be able to support individuals with CVI, I think is really important. You can often reduce the motion of a tablet or phone icons and features such as an app shaking when options are open. So there's lots of ways that you can reduce motion on these devices if you go into the settings. For example, if you think about holding down your finger on, an icon on your iPhone and start shaking to get it to, to show you that it's in editing mode or whatever. Sometimes that can be really confusing and disorienting for some kids with CVI. So just in general, motion can often be reduced on devices. If a student does not need full screen reading software, there's typically text-to-speech options as well that don't change the way one interacts with the user interface. So the big challenge of a screen reading program, like let's say VoiceOver for iPad or iPhone, which is built in, you can turn VoiceOver on today if you have an iPad or an iPhone, is that it does change the inner way that you're going to actually interact with the device. So it's not like you can't learn how to do that, but it's just a different way of interacting with the device versus a text-to-speech built-in support typically is not going to change the way you're going to interact with the device. It's just going to allow you to hear things read aloud. You can usually set audio descriptions to automatically play when present. That isn't on a lot of, tablet and phone operating systems. You can go in and set a setting that if an audio description is available on something, it'll automatically play. So if a student benefits from audio description. There's many touch accommodations that can be made on these devices usually. So if you have a student who maybe they need a little bit more time, they need a little bit more of a delay between how long it takes them to pick up their finger from a device and something being selected. There's lots of ways that you can accommodate for different kinds of touch and motor challenges. Voice control and switch control are typically also available on many of these devices. It's also possible to use phones or tablets to control nearby devices for environmental control. So things like turning lights on and off, or, well, now you can basically you basically buy plugs to make about anything be controllable from your phone or tablets. I won't list all of those, but and then another thing just it's important to know about is guided access. So that is available on, iPads. If you have students, you can set guided access so they can only stay in one app. They can't, sort of like get in and out and flip through a bunch of different things if there's some reason you have to do that. And then also don't forget about smart speakers and smart assistants. So they're usually activated by touch or voice. They can be they can do a whole range of things. So internet searches, set reminders, make calendar events, make phone calls and send a text, timers, read books to you, listen to the news, look up weather, get step-by-step directions alongside GPS apps, and so much more. So for a student who like the actual interaction with the device is difficult, but they have speech and can talk to a device, smart speakers are just amazing and can reduce lots of barriers and get students lots of information they need.
Find other videos in this series on assistive technology and CVI, and learn more about CVI at cvinow.org.